Hi guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing really well. So, we have a very interesting topic today. The chapter is food, where does it come from? And our topic, food materials and sources. So, I love food. We all eat food, right? So, shouldn't we be thinking about where the food comes from too? So, that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So, now, we have two main sources that the food that we consume come from. They are plants and animals. You probably already knew this, but now we'll be getting into exactly which food comes from which source. Now, let me tell you, there are other sources of food, but plants and animals are the two main sources. So, the food that's obtained from plants, they are fruits, vegetables, grains, pulses, and cereals. And the food obtained from animals, they are egg, meat, milk, fish, chicken, all of that. You guys probably eat most of these foods, so you must be having an idea about where they come from. So let's go a bit deeper. So let's guess the sources of some of the ingredients that you already saw in the previous lesson. I'm sure in the last lesson, you talked about how we have so many kinds of food, how food has so many varieties, and then you got into a few dishes and their ingredients. So we'll see these ingredients today and figure out their sources. So first, fruits and vegetables. We just spoke about this. They come from plants. So you can see the picture. We have vegetables that come from plants, fruits, and wheat. We can generalize wheat to grains. Yeah, we'll see that in the next slide. So we have, what are the sources of rice or wheat? So we've seen so many fields. There are paddy fields, wheat fields, and they have rows and rows of plants which give us grains. So just look at this picture. You can see there's so many paddy plants, right? So these plants will be harvested by the farmers, and then they pick out the grains, and then we finally get the grains, and we get rice or wheat from these grains. Yeah. Okay. Now we have food items like milk, eggs, and meat. Now these come from animals, right? So we can just see this picture. So we have eggs, we have milk and cheese, and we have fish. Now think about products like butter and cheese. Do they directly come from the animals? So we take the milk that comes from the animals, and when you add a few substances to this milk, when you change it a bit, so for in the case of butter or cream, when you churn the milk, you get butter or cream. So they still come from animals. You may be thinking, how does butter come from animals? I haven't seen butter coming from animals. So that's what I was trying to explain. It's the milk that we get from animals. When you change it a bit, when you add a few substances to it, it turns into butter or cream. So let's do a small activity. We'll take the food items that we listed. We'll find out where they've come from. So we'll see the ingredients and their sources. Okay. So we have the first food item, that's idli. I hope you all know what that is. It's an Indian dish and people eat it for breakfast. So its ingredients are rice, dal, salt, and water. So I've answered the first two. Rice and dal both come from plants. We just discussed this. Rice is a grain and dal is a pulse, and they both come from plants. But what about salt? We didn't talk about salt. Where do you think salt comes from? It obviously doesn't come from animals. So do you think it comes from a plant? Think about it for a second. Okay. So salt, I'm sure if you've gone to the beach, or if you've seen a sea, the water is actually quite salty, right? So it has salt dissolved in the water. That's what makes the water salty. So how are we getting the salt? So we have these salt farms, and this water from the ocean or the sea gets trapped in these farms, and when you leave it for a long time in the sun, the water gets evaporated, but the salt is actually left behind, and then we collect the salt, we clean it, and then we get the salt that we see in the packets and we use it for cooking. So the salt, we can say that the source is actually the sea. Then we come to water. Now water, obviously we can say it's from the sea, right? It's a huge body of water. But water has multiple sources. So we have some natural sources of pure water. So those are water springs. I don't know if you've heard of this, but a lot of places, they have springs naturally. So you get pure water from those springs. Then we have underground water. So what is that? So after we have rains, the water seeps through the soil, and then we can take this water from the soil. So that would be underground water. Then we have water from rivers. So now we have mountains with ice, right? So when this ice and snow melts down and they come through rivers, then we get the water from these rivers. Or as I said, we can take water from the sea or ocean, but what's the problem? They're very salty. So you remove the salt and we purify them, and then it becomes drinking water. So water, we have so many sources: rivers, springs, I'm just writing a few, the sea, ocean, all of that, yeah? Now, our second dish is chicken curry. So, first and most important ingredient of chicken curry is chicken. So, obvious, it comes from an animal, right? It comes from the chicken. Now, spices. So, it's animal. Now, what about spices? These are powders, right? So where do we get this powder from? So they're actually from plants. So we might get the seeds maybe, and then these go into factories, they're powdered, and then they turned into spices. But originally, yes, spices do come from plants. Now we have oil or ghee. Now this is a little different. Think about this one for a second. Oil or ghee. So I'm sure you know that they definitely come from plants, right? We've seen sunflower oil, sesame oil, olive oil, all these are plant products. Coconut oil, of course, coconut oil. But you must remember we can get them from animals too, because there is something known as fish oil or prawn oil. So the source for oil, we can say, is both plant and animal. So just remember that some things can have two sources because we have so many different types of oils, right? So plant and animal. Then we come to water. We already discussed this. I'm just going to write sea and ocean, but you know there's many other sources too. Now, here we have kheer. So kheer is a sweet dish. So, okay, the answer, I know the answer is already here, but yes, milk does come from animal. Rice, we already discussed the grains. They come from plant. And we have sugar. Now, sugar, where do you think sugar comes from? Do you think like salt, it comes from the ocean? Do we have sugar farms from the ocean? No. Sugar, once again, comes from plants. But we won't see them directly. We won't see those crystals. We have sugar cane, right? So from the sugar cane, when it once again goes to factories, they'll change it, they'll process it. And finally, we get the sugar that we actually consume. So this is the activity. We spoke about 3 food items, their ingredients and their sources. Think about more food items that you eat on a daily basis. Think of their different ingredients, simple ingredients that you must be knowing about, and you can think about their sources. If you have any doubts, please feel free to comment below. Thank you so much.